Hello, and welcome to another lesson from Level Up Mathematics. In today's lesson, we will be writing systems of equations given a graph, a table, or a real-world situation. We will be using some of the skills you learned in previous units on writing equations of lines or tables or verbal descriptions. So let's start with example 1. Example 1 says to write a system of equations to describe each of the following and then find the solution using technology. Now for my technology, I'll be using Desmos, but you can use any graphing calculator that you might have. So in example 1, the type of system we're giving, the representation is a graph. And so I'm going to label these lines with a number 1 and a number 2, just to help us keep them separate. Now remember from our previous unit, to write the equation of a line, we need to know the slope and the y-intercept. So let's start with line 1, and we're going to find the m, the slope, and the b, the y-intercept. So to find the slope, I want to pick two friendly points. So maybe this one and this one, all right? So I'll start with the bottom point, and I'm going up 1, 2, 3, and to the right 1. So 3 over 1, which is 3. And the y-intercept, where it touches the y-axis, right here at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So our b is 7. Now we'll do the same thing for line 2. We'll pick two friendly points, maybe right here and right here, starting with the bottom. Well, hold on, let me write this down. Slope, y-intercept. All right, so starting with the bottom point, up 1, 2, 3, 4, to the right 1. So 4 over 1, which is a slope of 4, and our y-intercept, it's touching the graph, the y-axis, excuse me, at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, at negative 5. Now that we know our critical information here, we can write our system. So our first equation is going to come from line 1, and it'll be y equals 3x plus 7. And our second equation of our system will be y equals 4x minus 5. And now we're going to find the solution. Now, some of you may be tempted to think, well, these lines are parallel, therefore the answer should be no solution. But remember, if you have a different slope, you are always going to have one solution. You may not be able to see it on the grid you're given, but I guarantee you those two lines will eventually cross because they have different slopes. So that's why sometimes technology is helpful, because we don't have a large enough grid here to see where they're going to eventually cross. So using technology, I'll put in my first equation of my system, 3x plus 7. And then I'll put in my second equation, 4x minus 5. Again, they look a little less parallel on my graphing calculator, but I'm going to kind of zoom out, and you can see they're getting closer and closer together. Now, the nice thing about Desmos is all I have to do is kind of touch where they intersect, and it'll pop up the point for me automatically. Your calculator will, if you're not using Desmos, will be a little bit different. So just refer to the directions for your particular calculator. So for this problem, my solution will be 12, comma, 43. All right, in problem B, we're again giving two lines. And just like before, I think I'll label them to make it a little bit easier to get the equation for the system here. I'll label this line number 1 and this line number 2. And honestly, it does not matter which one you label line 1 and which one you label line 2, okay? So I'll start with line 1. Let me just label this line 1. We need our M and our B. So I want to find two friendly points. I'll use this one, and see, well, this one looks pretty friendly. So I'm going up 1 over 1. So 1 over 1 gives me a slope of 1. and it's touching the y-axis at positive 2. Okay, now line 2. We need our M and our B. All right, so I need 2 friendly points. Well, I know that one looks pretty friendly. And maybe this one. All right, so if I start with the bottom point, I'm going up 1, 2, 3, 4, and left 1. So 4 over -1 gives me a slope of -4. Now, the problem with line 2 is it's going to touch the y-axis somewhere up here. I don't really know. If I extend the line, it's going to touch the y-axis at a number that I cannot figure out what it is just by looking at the graph. So when that happens, you're going to have to use the formula y equals mx plus b to find the b. All right, so to use the formula y equals mx plus b, I need to pick one point. So let's just, and it doesn't matter which point you use. I'll just use this point down here and the slope. So let me write down the point I'm going to use. 1, 2, 3, 4, comma 1. So I'm going to use 4, comma 1. Again, use any friendly point on line 2. It doesn't matter which one you use. And I'm going to use the fact that the slope is -4. And I can use this information to find b. So for the y, I'll plug in a 1. For the m, I'll plug in a -4. For the x, I'll plug in, oh, the slope, oh no, for the x is +4, excuse me, and then plus b. So 1 is equal to -16 plus b. Now we want to get the b isolated. So to do that, we'll have to add 16 to both sides. So 1 plus 16 would give me 17 equals b. So now I know my b is 17. So now we're ready to write the system. So let's go back to line 1. We had a slope of 1 and a y-intercept of 2. So that's going to give me y equals x plus 2. For my second line, we had a slope of -4 and a y-intercept of +17. Now, I don't really need to use technology to find the solution on this graph because it's right here where they intersect. So I can get this right off of the paper here. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 3, comma 5 is the solution, the point where they intersect. All right, example C. Now, in example C, this time they're not giving us the graph. They're only giving us a table of some points on each line. So line F passes through the points 2, 7, 4, comma 10.5, and 7, comma 15.75. So I don't know the slope or the y-intercept. So let's start here. Let's do line F. We need to find the M and the B. All right. So let's start by finding the slope. To find the slope, I need to pick 2 friendly points. So I'll just use the first 2 friendly points, 2, comma 7 and 4, comma 10.5. Now, we're going to have to use our slope formula. Now, it might have been a while since you've used the slope formula. So remember, it's y2, which is 10.5, minus y1, which is 7, over x2, which is 4, minus x1, which is 2. Again, it might have been a while since you've used your slope formula. All right, so I'm going to put this in my calculator. 10.5 minus 7 and 4 minus 2, and I get a slope of 1.75. Now, normally I change my slopes into fractions, but because there were decimals in my original table, I'll go ahead and use a decimal for my slope. So my slope is 1.75. Now, the next thing we have to do is find our b. So remember, if we don't know the b, we have to use this formula, y equals mx plus b, to find the b. So I'm going to use this point, 2, comma 7, for my xy, and then I'll use the slope of 1.75. So for the y, we'll plug in a 7, 1.75 for the m, a 2 for the x, plus b. So 7 equals 1.75 times 2 gives me 3.5 plus b. Now I need to isolate the b. To get the b by itself, I'll have to subtract 3.5 from both sides. So 7 minus 3.5 is 3.5. So now I know the b is 3.5. All right, now that's line F. Now we're going to do the same thing with line G. So we need to know the M and the B. So I'll pick 2 points out of the table. I'll just use the first 2 again. Again, it doesn't matter which 2 points you pick. You'll still get the same answer either way. -3, 4 and -2, 0. So let's review the slope formula again. Y2, which is 0, minus y1, which is 4, over x2, which is -2, minus x1, which is -3. All right, so I'll put that in my calculator. 0 minus 4 on top, and -2 minus -3 on the bottom gives me a slope of -4. Now I'll use my formula y equals mx plus b to find the b. So for my point, I'll use the first one. Again, it doesn't matter which one you choose. And I'll plug in a 4 for the y, a -4 for the m, -3 for the x, and then plus b. So 4 is equal to -4 times -3 is +12 plus b. And then to get the b by itself, I'm going to subtract I'll subtract 12 from each side. So 4 minus 12 would be -8. So now I know my b is -8. All right, so now we're ready to write our system. So our system, y equals 1.75x plus 3.5, and y equals -4x minus 8. Now, because they did not give me a graph, I'm going to have to graph it myself on my calculator. So I'm going to zoom back out here and try to figure out where they intersect. So 1.75x plus 3.5 and -4x minus 8. So they're intersecting at the point -2, 0. All right. Now, in problem D, we're given a table and a graph. So what I'd like you to do is pause the video and try to write the system for the table and the graph on your own. All right, welcome back. Let's see how you did. Let's see, I'm going to do the graph first because it's the easiest one. So I first want to put a dot where that line touches the y-axis. And then I'm going to get the slope. I'll use this bottom point. I'm going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, up 5, 1, 2, 3, 4 left. So m is +5, up 5, and left 4, -4. So my slope is -5/4. My b is equal to 1. So that was pretty easy to get the m and the b from the table. Now, from the graph. From the table, let me write down line H here. Line H, I used the first 2 points, -16, 7, and -8, 1. And then I got the slope, which was 1 minus 7 over -8 minus -16, which was, let's see, 1 minus 7 on top and negative 8 minus negative 16 on the bottom. And written as a fraction, that would be an m of negative 3/4. Then I used y equals mx plus b to find my b. I used the first point, negative 16 comma 7. So 7 equals negative 3 over 4 times negative 16 plus b. So 7 equals 12 plus b. Subtract 12 to get negative 5 equals b. All right, so now I know my m and my b, and I'm ready to write my system. So for my system, for the table, it would be y equals negative 3 over 4x minus 5. Now, if you put y equals negative 0.75x minus 5, that is also okay. All right. And for my graph, y equals negative 5 over 4x plus 1. And then the last thing I did, let me erase those other last two lines. The last thing I did was put them in my calculator. So negative 3 over 4 x minus 5, and then negative 5 over 4 x plus 1, and then I found their intersection point to be 12 comma negative 14. All right, if you got any part of that incorrect, pause the video and fix any of your incorrect answers. All right, let's move on to problem 2, example 2. It says the graph of lines k sub 1 and k sub 2 are shown on the grid. Which system of equations is best represented by the graph? And then it gives us 4 different choices. So let's start by writing the system of equations in slope-intercept form. So for k1, we're going to get the m and the b. Those should be pretty easy to get on the graph. Let's see, it's touching the y-axis here at negative 2. And the slope, I need another friendly point. How about this one? 1, 2, 3 over 1. So I have a slope of 3. So I know my first equation is 3x minus 2. Now for k sub 2, let me get a different color here. It's touching the y-axis at 1, 2, 3, 4. So I have my b is 4. I need another friendly point. How about right there? Okay. So starting at the bottom point, I'm going up 1, 2, 3, 4, and left 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So my m is negative 4/9. So y equals negative 4 over 9x plus 4. So there's my system. Now, if you look at the answer choices, notice the answer choices are all in standard form. So what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to take the answers and rewrite them in slope-intercept form. So let's start with answer A. Our top equation is 3x minus y equals 6. If I put that in slope-intercept form, I would start by subtracting 3x. So negative y equals negative 3x plus 6, and then I would divide everything by negative 1. So y equals positive 3x minus 6. Now, we needed y equals 3x minus 2. So I don't even have to do the second equation. I know it's not answer A. All right, so let's go to answer choice C. 3x minus y is equal to 2. Start by subtracting 3x from both sides. So negative y equals negative 3x plus 2, and then divide everything by negative 1 to get positive 3x minus 2. Notice that line checks out. So if the top line checks out, now you have to check the bottom line. So 4x plus 9y is equal to 36. So subtract 4x to get 9y equals negative 4x plus 36 and divide by 9. Negative 4 over 9x, and 36 divided by 9, positive 4. And that checks out. So now I know I have answer choice C. All right, example 3. A customer paid a total of $6 for 68 copies at a print shop. Some of the copies were black and white, and the rest were color copies. Each black and white copy was 8 cents. Each color copy was 15 cents. Write a system of equations which can be used to find B, the number of black and white copies, and C, the number of color copies that the customer paid for at the print shop. All right, so what I want to do is I want to write one equation for the total number of copies and one equation for the total cost of the copies. So we're going to go back to the original sentence, which said a customer paid a total of $6 for 68 copies. So my first equation, the number of black and white, which, oh wait, they did not tell me to use X and Y. They told me to use B for the number of black and white and C for the number of color copies. So the number of black and white copies, B, plus the number of color copies, C, has to add up to 68 total copies. All right. Now we're going to get an equation for the total cost. So each black and white copy was 8 cents. So 0.08B plus the cost of the color copy, which was 0.15C, has to equal a total of $6. So there's our system of equations to describe this situation. All right, example 4. On a recent algebra test, the question below appeared. 58% of the students chose answer choice B, which was incorrect. Only 34% chose the correct answer of choice C. What mistake do you think the 58% of the students who chose answer B made? Now, here's the question. The perimeter of a rectangular garden is 48 meters. The length of the garden, y, is 6 meters more than twice the width, x. Which system of equations can be used to find the length and width of the garden in meters? Now, in this problem, they've already told us that the correct answer, the correct answer is C, and then most of the students chose B. So let's not even consider A or D for right now. So B is the choice that the majority of students made, but C was the correct answer. So the only difference between these two answers is the top equation. So let's try to see if we can figure out what do you think they did wrong. Let me read the question again. The perimeter of a rectangular garden is 48 meters. The length of the garden, y, is 6 feet more than twice its width, x. I think a picture here would really help us figure out what the students did wrong, okay? Because in a rectangle, we have a length and we have a width, okay? So they want the width to be x and the length to be y. So look at answer choice B and see if you can figure out what is wrong with B. All right. Hopefully you said that when you're finding perimeter, you have to add up all four sides. So this would be x plus y equals 48, which when I combine like terms, I get 2x plus 2y equals 48. So that is why the correct answer choice was answer choice C. And that concludes today's lesson, Writing Systems of Equations.